We will give the word now to Tim O'Riordan from the University of East Anglia to talk about time use, energy consumption, and lifestyle changes. Tim?
I'm a bit of an interloper, but I'm finding this a very interesting meeting because of the interconnections between some of the comments that are made. And what Malik and his group are doing, as I read it, are looking at three connected issues. One is, how is energy use changing? And what's driving the change of energy use? And we all know, if we study the sociology of energy use, that the key drivers are bits of technology, changing the way in which families and households operate, prices of electricity, relative prices of electricity, but above all, how people make choices when choices are offered to them. So then we come to the second part of this interesting work by Malik and his friends, which is, if you have more time, because technology is giving you more time, how do you use that, and what does it mean in terms of energy use? And does that change it towards sustainability or not? The third question is, if you have a lifestyle which is either towards sustainability or not towards sustainability, how would you know? And what might be the implications from the point of view of energy use? And then you bring the three together. Now, the comments I would make, I can't possibly cover all the ground, but I'll say 4 or 5 things which I think are relevant. The first one I'm getting from things like the use of leisure time and the changing way people use energy in relation to, above all, to pricing, are extremely varied and complex. There is no such thing as a pattern that you cannot predict. It varies so much on culture, it varies so much on information, it varies so much on social pressures and social links and so on. So the 3 areas I'd like to land on is, first of all, water, because water raised the idea of how technology is changing and the speed with which it is changing. I would, if I were in your shoes of Malik and his friends, spend a bit of time going to the companies which are really producing new forms of technology and energy conservation, around Siemens, around Philips, around Electrolux, the big international European-based corporations, and ask them what's on the horizon when it comes to technology and energy. So you can see what may be emerging over the next 2 to 3 years that would be really relevant for changing energy use. For example, there's a large amount of change in the way in which people use the television in a household. And whereas in the old days there was one television in one room called the living room, there may be 5 televisions in 5 different rooms with people doing all kinds of things in relation to the TV streaming. That changes the energy use just of television because the household and the lifestyles have altered. And it changes the sociology of the household because people are either together or completely separate. So there are subtle things there. The second area of technology, Walter, is the so-called smart meter. And whether the smart meter can be made effective. And there's lots of studies of how people respond to smart meters in terms of technology and energy use. And I'm not convinced that smart meters change that much of the way in which people use energy. But I don't think we've used smart meters smartly enough. And I think if we actually go to these companies and test this out, particularly in relation to the iPhone, it may be we have a whole new area where people are much more informed about the potential for energy use. So that's one block that I think you should do. Scan the way in which the technology companies are looking at this in terms of potential for energy conservation. The second question is my friend Richard, who raised the issue of consumer resistance. Now, one of the things which is an enigma to all of us is that 75 to 80% of people will not change their electricity supplier even when they're ripping you off. And even when they know that they're being ripped off, they still don't change the energy supplier. All they do is moan at the government and try and change the energy system. What Malik and his friends could have said but didn't say is, what would the suppliers which are known to be green— this is not a critique, by the way, because I think it's somewhere in your work, it's just not in your papers— what would the energy companies which are known to be green, how can they better market themselves? What is it that you could— and that kind of takes me to the third part of my analysis, that working on the household, working on the individual, which tends to be part of the way in which these papers have been written that you use in background documentation. actually is more interesting when you look at it in the context of the other work that I've heard this afternoon. The idea of a city which is more energy efficient. An idea of neighborhoods which are more energy efficient. The transition movement talks about resilient streets. Actually saying to people, the school, the shops, the small businesses in a very confined area of a community, why don't you all get together and be much more energy efficient as part of what you might call pride, identity, social analysis. We're in a green part of Bristol. We're proud of the fact that we've got 10% less energy over than anyone else in Bristol. Why don't people follow us? That kind of thinking is going on in a number of cities now, and is driven by communities which share ideas with each other. And part of what Ardina was saying is about knowledge brokering. How does information which is in part of the community get transferred to other parts of the community? And there's a point that Nikki said, which I loved. He said, it doesn't always mean that you scale up. It just might mean that you replicate, which is not the same as scaling up. And maybe we should spend less time worrying about scaling up and much more time about replication. Because I think that would be very interesting. My final comment is our wonderful friend Rebound. Now, Rebound, in my view, is a poisoned chalice. It could be almost anything. It can give rise to more energy use, and it can give rise to completely new patterns of energy conservation management. Because people start in the rebound, or in the non-rebound, and this is your area, Richard, beginning to explore, I've started saving my energy in X, why don't I save my more energy in Y? So the reaction is about rebounding positively or towards sustainability. Now, if I were in your shoes, I would spend much more time, I raised it, so I'm just picking it up again, looking at the potential for rebound as a positive transformational element. Because it's there, and it could be used, but you need to tie it to things like localizing, new funding at the local level, which Domenico and I have been talking about while you guys have been drinking coffee and tea. The whole idea of what do young people who are now out of work in large parts of the world, not least in this part of the world, how can you mobilize that as part of an energy conservation exercise in a community like Coruña? What could you do in the University of Coruña to get the 60% of young people who are not in business, not in work, not able to do anything as well? What do they think about energy? What could they do about changing energy use? Could they be a mobilizing force and ambassadors in altering energy use? So if I were in your shoes in Coruña, I would say here is a test case of how the world might look in 5 years' time. Leave these young people alone and they could become in despair. And geographers study this thing. It's called silent despair. And that's a dangerous area to be in, because if people are not protesting, they've just disappeared. But if they were part of a process of transforming a community like Coruña into sustainability across a wide swathe of activity, food, diet, exercise, information around water and energy use, the pride of having a city which is different in Spain. Never underestimate the significance of pride in making people feel they should do something collectively. So my final comment for you all is capture the 6 or 8 strands which are in this wonderful meeting, and you realize you've got something which is a real agenda, and do it in relation to the communities in which you're in, because you can then throw light on much wider questions from that point of view. But it also gives Directorate a much more political angle from what it normally does, and that's a very important part of the Research Directorate's future, in my view. And secondly, it gives you, as a university, this wonderful new world the university is getting into, which you are change agents and ambassadors for bettering the people around which you work and live. Never underestimate that the university is now instinctively and irreversibly part of the change agency of the communities they're in. They're teaching this way, they're learning this way, they're communicating this way, they're altering this way. In 5 years' time, the outcome of this particular exercise should be a Coruña which is less energy wasting and more proud of itself. And in that, you've become the change agent. Why spend all your time looking at all the others who are change agents? Why don't you become key players in the change agents? And that could be done in Potsdam, and it could be done in Amsterdam. It's not confined to this place. But for Coruña is particularly important because of the economics and social changes going on in Spain right now. I've been learning so much this afternoon, and so thank you for your wonderful contributions.